Hello, today I'll be showing you how to convert the older Brompton 2-speed slash 6-speed rear wheel set into a 3-speed slash 9-speed setup. And this is just adding an extra sprocket to the normally 2 external sprocket on that hub. It's an affordable option to give your Brompton a bit more gear range to almost match the range offered by the new 4 slash 12-speed wheel sets. There's the easy way where you buy the complete kit from BrommiePlus for about £105 plus shipping from Singapore. This method replaces the hub ratchet mechanism to one that matches more closely the regular Shimano one that lets you screw on the lock ring instead of using the circlip. And then there's the cheaper option that's about £40 that requires a bit more labor and DIY. So the method I show here uses the shifter modification also from BrommiePlus, just so that he can keep the stock shifter look. But you can actually replace the shifter with a indexed or non-indexed friction shifter. That could work out a bit cheaper. If this is my second time doing this mod. This isn't my bike, but the person wanted to install some other mods after watching my videos, so I thought it'd be a good chance to film this modification. But upgrading bikes for people isn't something I plan to do regularly. Actually, this is the bike we modified. It started off as a 6-speed steel C-line, and we changed out the front steel fork to the rear carbon fork. And then we changed out the crankset, headset, bottom bracket, rear triangle. Yeah, the rear triangle is a titanium one, so yeah, it's pretty much like a super light with a carbon fork now. I framed most of the upgrade process, so I might make a video about this later. So what you need. The sprockets that you'll be using are the 11-speed type sprockets. So that means that these sprockets only work with 11-speed chains. You need the thinner 11-speed sprocket so it's thin enough to fit on the narrow hub. Also, the sprockets are cheap, so I recommend getting a bunch between 11 and 19 teeth, and then seeing what mixture of sprockets kind of works best for you. Any bigger than around 18 or 19 and you might have to modify your frame. We'll also need a 2.18mm spacer. Again, these are on AliExpress. I'll link all these items below in the video description, and I'll also show you and go over them in the video later on. So for the circlip, I just modified the old circlip, so you don't need to buy a new one. And then you need a 11-speed chain. You will need the BrommiePlus shifter modification. That's from BrommiePlus in Singapore, so that can take a couple weeks to ship. Again, you can also use a third-party friction shifter if you happen to have one lying around. So as part of this mod, what you have to do is also change the chainring. So if you have a post 2014 Brompton, then you should have a removable chainring, which makes it a bit easier, and it's 130 BCD, so you can find a lot of those on AliExpress, Amazon, or wherever. So just get a chainring that you kind of like. And I guess the other issue is that most chainrings that you buy third party don't have a chain guard, so that might be a consideration. But what I've been working on recently is a kind of universal chain guard that I can 3D print and match to whatever chainring that you might have. This is something I'll release later on. I'm still working on it. In terms of tools that you need a metal file. The only other things you need are really like an Allen key and a kind of flathead screwdriver to apply the circlip. The first step is removing the sprocket stack, and I mentioned a flathead screwdriver, but I didn't have one that was kind of thick and strong enough, so I'm using just this bottle opener. But the idea is to remove the sprocket set and then removing the black dork disc spoke protector. And removing that spoke protector gives you some extra space to add that third sprocket in, along with modifying the circlip.
And then yes, the dork disc. So that dork disc takes up about 1mm. And then since you're switching to 11-speed sprockets, that will give you back some space. So this is an 11-tooth sprocket, so that'll go on top. We were considering a couple options, so I got an 11-tooth and a 12-tooth. So 12 is also possible. Once this is set up, he can kind of play with whatever he wants. This one's 18-tooth. So 111, 112, and then you'll need these spacers that go in between the individual sprockets. So this is 2.18mm sprocket. You just need one because the 11 or 12 comes with built-in spacer there. And if you compare, it is approximately 2.18 because this lip fits into the bottom sprocket. So let's put this in here. So we've got 18 on the bottom. There's a specific tooth pattern this goes in. And then the spacer does not matter. Which one is this one? 15. 15. So yeah, 3 sprockets there. So the issue is that this circlip now is a bit too wide or thick to fit into the stack. So this is kind of where the manual labor comes in to this mod, because you have to kind of sand down the circlip. I'm just putting this on to demonstrate what you actually have to do. So yeah, is it obvious from the camera? So you see how it sits proud here? It's not in the channel. Obviously, if you put this on, this circlip will just come flying off eventually. I guess I will work on shaving down this circlip now. Okay, so what I have is this file. It's for metal, so it'll be hard enough to do this. It takes off quite a bit actually, so that's a good sign. And I just got to keep doing this again and again and again and again. It's quite slow going, so I don't know if you can even see this. You just see the little shiny bit. The last time I was doing this, I remember I was focusing on the thickness, because when you go 11 tooth, the thickness is more important than the width. Less of a channel to drop this thing in. Okay, it probably needs quite a bit more work. So, looks like there's quite a bit of ways, but like once you can work this into one side, you can slowly kind of tap it in, and then it'll kind of go all the way. And I tried to find a different size circlip, but for the life of me, I could not find anything that works. I'm pretty sure there was a guy who used to sell them specifically for this mod, and I think BrommiePlus used to as well, but they seem not to supply it anymore, which is kind of annoying. 'Cause then you have to do this. Okay, shaved a lot more metal. You can kind of see what I'm trying to get at here. So when you make it thinner, you can kind of slide this edge in here, and then you can just work your way around, and then it'll cinch closed. And the outer diameter isn't as important as the inner, because you'll see that the teeth here are still engaged. So this will keep the sprockets still inside. So yeah, it looks like essentially like this side is thin enough. I just need to kind of work my way thinner here, and then eventually it'll just pop out. And then to take it out, it's not super hard. You just kind of pry it with the little kind of bottle opener tool I have, but any kind of small flathead would also work. I should have done this earlier. Using the vise makes it so much easier because I can put more force into it. So yeah, vise, good call.
Unfortunately, I forgot to measure how much material I actually took off in terms of millimeters, but hopefully this close-up shows you what it kind of looks like. But yeah, definitely just file a bit, test, and see how far you need to go.
I think I'm very close here. We'll see, this is now in, but it's quite solid. The wiggleness is just in the hub itself, which I guess is somewhat normal, but I can tighten this to make sure it wiggles less. But yeah, essentially, there's not really a risk that this will fly out, because again, the metal is still quite clamping tight on that, and it prevents, you can see it's still firmly locking in the teeth that would normally fit in here. What you should do is, so get one end to start inside the channel, and then just kind of wrap it around there. And then there'll be a groove between the 12 tooth ring and the clip. With something like this bottle opener, just kind of pry the circlip into that channel. It should fall in if you've shaved enough of the metal. It's always good to err on the side of caution and not take too much off. And then if you're having trouble getting this to fall in, you can always take a bit off. You don't want to go too hard and then compromise the strength of the ring too much, because the spring back, or the spring back is definitely a bit less than before. There we go. Ignore the siren outside. Okay, there we go. The ring is perfectly seated inside. And you'll see that the little play here is just with the hub body. I think I can tighten this to reduce the play, but the sprocket stack itself is very tight in there. So yeah. But okay, let's just see how hard or easy it is to remove this lock ring now that it's kind of deeper into the channel here. So this is the start of the split. You can kind of just pry it out, I think. Again, make sure your fingers are not closed. Okay, so edge is out. And then should be able to just work my way around here to get it out. Yeah, so it's a bit more annoying than the regular lock ring, but once you modify it, it's fine. The issue is like finding a mechanic that's willing to work with something that's been modified. So I took apart the shifter. You're pretty much replacing the internals. So you see this black plastic thing. You're replacing with this one, which has like three ratcheting points instead of 2. So that's how you get the 3-speed. I'm sure the BrommiePlus has a better video for this. So I removed the shifter, so I guess it's easy enough to just install here. Putting the spring back is always a bit confusing. I always forget how it goes. I think when I used this kit previously, they actually just had plastic ratcheting parts, not the metal ones you see here. So it looks like they improved it a bit. Take this piece off. You need this little white thing, the cable retainer. Ta-da. So I've got a lot of this white grease here. I wonder if I can just reuse it. I don't know if is this the standard grease? I don't remember the Brompton, the other one I had looked like this. It's got plenty of grease there, so I'm just gonna put this back on. Try to get some of this grease onto here. I believe it went like this. And then this piece, sorry, is also being replaced. There's a spring there. Why does this have a bottom ratcheting thing? Oh, I guess for the middle click, it has to have a intermediate backstop thing. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, there's this little spring here, which I believe you have to kind of go like this. I swear the other one had a number. Wait, this doesn't even have a number on it. It just comes with a blank window. Okay. This spring, I believe, went on top here. Threaded here. Yeah, when you take this part, the tricky part is always the spring. Okay, so the ratcheting arm thing actually goes this way. This goes here. Yeah. So because when you pull the lever thing, it kind of pushes this, and you got the ratchet. When you go like this, yeah, this little bump releases. Should release? Yeah, there we go. And then again. Yeah. Okay, so that's how the mechanism works. Okay, this spring is stronger. It's stronger because it's further apart but stronger, because you're essentially pulling this piece like this. So the further apart it is, the more it has to pull back. I guess a welcome upgrade. Make sure it doesn't go flying. Keep it contained here. Just simulating the pull from the derailleur thing. So really hard to do one-handed. And then pull, release. Yep. Okay. Put the screw back on, put it back on the brake lever, and then it's pretty much ready to test. I had to print this axle spacer. I'll show you the issue. Essentially, I need a spacer here between the triangle and the hub. Because of this, this new sprocket is sticking out a bit. When this goes back on here, that sprocket just touches this part here. I think one alternative is to shave this down a bit. Yeah, but I think the spacer also gives it a bit more leeway here with the shifting mechanism, because it does have to shift outwards a bit, and sometimes the end stop doesn't go out all the way. But yeah, I'm gonna put a 3mm spacer. It's kind of expected. I did this last time. I didn't notice any issues. I think with 3mm, it's not necessary to redish the wheel or do anything drastic like that. Okay, just doing some tuning now. Lighting's not great. Right now I need to adjust the end stop so that I can shift high enough in there. So the end stop adjustment is here. So this is the smallest. Should be the second, but it's not. So there needs to be some indexing. This does not want to go in the highest because of the end stop. Because you can tell when you try to push this, it's not going any further, and that side of the chain pusher is preventing this from getting further. When you loosen this, it allows the chain pusher to go a bit further. That's the lowest. No, it still does not want to go there. Let me see if it's the chain pusher or the...
I was tuning the chain pusher here, and the 3mm spacer I found out was too big. When you're changing the end stops of the chain pusher, if you go too far of an angle, eventually the other prong of the chain pusher will restrict how far the pulley wheel can go. So if the angle is too extreme, it also doesn't work. So that's why you need the spacer to space out the pulley wheel so the angle of the chain pusher is less extreme to reach kind of the end points. And if the spacer is too big, then you'll have issues getting into the big chain ring. And if the spacer is too small, you'll have issues getting the small chain ring. So that's why it's kind of a fine tune adjustment. For me, I can 3D print spacers of different sizes, but you could probably do something similar with a just kind of metal washers of 1mm, and then just add however many you need.
I think I got it. So 1.5mm spacer, medium, big sprocket, medium, small, medium, big, medium, small, and I will just show you the small chain line here. The chain line is probably better on the small chain ring actually. So this is the medium, big, crazy climbing, small, big. I think I can cut the chain a bit shorter. Put it back in the big. So this doesn't have a narrow wide chain ring, so chain drops might happen if you backpedal. But let's see. Yeah, this is backpedal, a bit of drag. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I think I could remove another length. Good to keep it tighter, because with the narrow wide, you're gonna experience some chain drop with too loose of a chain, especially on the small chain ring. So when it's folded in the small chain ring, it looks like this. But there is clearance, so no frame scraping. You can kind of see the clearances you're kind of dealing with here with these third-party chain rings. So I did remove the spacer. So if you wanted to, you could put like if you didn't have enough space here, you could put another, like add a 0.51 millimeter spacer here and take off that 0.51 millimeter on this side. So currently, technically, I think it's technically a bit asymmetric, but I mean, probably not noticeable because there's the chainring stack here and then the spacer and spacer here. It probably adds up to around the same. But yeah, folding with in the small chainring, you get this sloppiness.
So yeah, the standard 12-speed Brompton hub with 4 external sprockets has the external sprockets 11 to 18, and the one I installed here was 12 to 18. And the standard Brompton one has 402% gear range, and the one I installed here has 368. So previous I did install an 11-tooth sprocket, so that would match exactly the 12-speed Brompton hub. Alternatively, I have fit as high as I think 20-tooth or 21-teeth, and for that you have to kind of modify the frame a bit for a lot of the standard steel Brompton frames. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to try a bigger rear sprocket. But you definitely can't go much higher than 20 or 21 just because the standard chain tensioner and derailleur system can't handle that big of a sprocket. You'd have to do some other third-party parts. Essentially, with this 2 to 3 sprocket mod, you can gain the same gear range. The only limitation is that the jumps between the sprockets are a bit bigger. And if you're not so much into DIY, I do think the BrommiePlus with the change in the hub is a pretty good option. And then most bike shops will be able to handle changing that out. And yeah, this modification is completely reversible. So if you don't like it or you screw something up, you can just buy a new set of the 12 and 16T sprocket, and those kits come with a brand new circlip. So I just got back from Greece. It's a short little weekend trip. I visited the temple of Hephaestus, who is apparently the Greek god of blacksmithing and metalworking and artisans. So yeah, put in a little prayer that my 3D printed titanium parts will meet the tolerances needed for the fitment that I need. And this past week I've been working on 3D printed carbon fiber nylon fenders. And it seems like it's quite wet this week, so I'll be able to do some testing on those. And yeah, that's pretty much the week since I was finalizing those 3D files to get them 3D printed. So that's with the manufacturer now. So they'll get back to me with any changes that might be required, and then probably take a few weeks to fulfill and ship out. And then I'll have the next step in my little project for the 3D printed titanium and carbon stem and the carbon rack. Oh, a couple other things. So I redid the cabling on the bike here, and I saved around 70 grams, I believe, off the regular cables. And they look a lot nicer now because they're about the same length. And I've been designing this 3D printed chain guard that fits on most standard chain rings. So I have the file in Fusion where it's like parametric, so I can get a couple measurements, essentially like the inner diameter of the chain ring and then like the outer diameter of how much I need. And then with a few parameters, I can change it to fit essentially most chain rings. So it's actually quite nice. It turned out better than I expected because I thought most chain rings look kind of dumb. I could probably use a bit more height here to prevent your pant leg from going in. Yeah, it's actually quite nice, only like 15 grams or something. And the way it fits is that you can actually remove it without removing the crank arm because it just has a couple tabs. You kind of bend it, slide it through here, and then it kind of clips in. In some ways, it's quite simple, but it does take a bit of experimentation to get it right. So yeah, I'm not sure how feasible this is to kind of make and sell. If people can measure the inner diameter, measure the width, and a couple other measurements, and then I can kind of make and sell these. But if you're modifying your Brompton, I think the chain guard is something a lot of people might miss from the standard chain ring. So maybe this will help convince people to try something a bit different as well.